Speaking moistly.
Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking moistly, our main host, our number one host, Mark Paralavis, and I'm Greg Wycliffe. How's it going today, Mark?
Good. Greg, you're the best host. You're the best. I may be the main host, but you're the best host.
We all do what we can. And speaking of Justin Trudeau speaking moistly, he said something. He had something to say, moistly speaking, on a
En français.
En français, on a French talk show that a lot of people have been talking about, and for good reason. I'll just get up the quote here. Canada Justin Trudeau on the Unjabbed. Quote, they don't believe in science / progress and are very often misogynistic and racist. This leads us as a leader and as a country to make a choice. Do we tolerate these people?
I think that it's funny tying the racist to they don't believe in science. Like, are Mennonites by default racist? Like, do Mennonites believe in science, right? They just like the horse and carriage, right? Like, I just think that daisy chaining those two things together, or other, like, Luddites also racist by definition? I just think it's really to pick two random groups of people, right? Like, it seems like a strange thing. Like, oh, they're anti-science. It's the same thing. Remember when Barack Obama used to say that 97% of scientists agree that the climate is warming and therefore we need to act? And that's not really how science works. Right. I mean, like, that's how the politicized science works. And that's how the church science works. But that's not really, honestly, how sciencey science works.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we're two people who are not surprised by this comment, really. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like par for the course at this point. You know,
well, it's like
I'm
your
not...
girlfriend's been thinking about breaking up with you, and like you find notes that like have your name with X's on them, right? Like, you see news footage of Justin Trudeau calling an old woman racist when she's like, Mr. Trudeau, could you tell us how we're going to pay for all this? And she's like, your racism has no place.
I kind of saw it coming.
You're like, really? You're gonna right? Okay, so the gloves are off, right? That's essentially.
But I say that because there's been a few people who I know who aren't as much into politics, and they're kind of starting to wake up to some of this stuff. And they saw this clip and they're like, can you believe he said that? I can't believe that he would say something like that. And I'm thinking, like, I must be... Trudeau, you've made me so jaded, because, like, I'm like actually not that surprised at all by this. I was making jokes about this. We were making jokes about this like a couple months ago about I'm sure they're going to come out and call the Unjabbed a racist. And sure enough, here it is. And I think the main kind of counterpoint needs to be, there's a lot of Black communities who historically don't trust mandated vaccinations, and like there's a pretty good historical precedence for that. I don't know the name off the top of my head, but essentially it was like a study on syphilis, and they were
the Tuskegee experiment.
Tuskegee, thank you.
So
it's like there's a historical precedent, like, to not trust the science, Justin, and like all these Black folk, I guess, are racist because they have valid reasons for not. The whole and that's the thing about this talking point from Justin Trudeau. It is like many progressive, climate change this or whatever. Like, it's talking about it and trying to actually break it down logically. It almost makes everybody sound stupid who's even trying to talk about it or trying to break it down. And it's almost like designed that way, right?
Yeah. It's all about feelings. But First Nations and in Canada, minority people, right? BIPOC's gone out of flavor now, right? I always thought it was a weird term, but anyway, First Nations and people of color, whatever term you want to use, have low vaccination rates. And like First Nations, that's justified through various missteps the government has made, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so Justin Trudeau trying to paint the unvaccinated or vaccine free or whatever you want to call us, or them, that group of people, as racist, misogynistic, anti-science. It's really interesting because the data paints a different picture, and the different picture that it paints is the people that he's trying to label as like these terrible things are the same people that he's lecturing Canadians about being intolerant of, and he's breeding intolerance
Mhm.
of a specific subgroup, and not a racial subgroup, but a specific subgroup. But that subgroup largely includes, Canadians of color and First Nations people, and a whole children, right? Like all children.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, this has been happening ever since Trudeau's been in power, essentially. But it's the double speak, and it's what I like to call the like polite fascism. Everyone on the Canadian news media, everyone in the Liberal Party and the NDP, they're always sure to be very,
And the NDP.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
They're all very
the NDP. The NDP are worse because they don't even realize they're backbenchers. Like they don't even get invited to they find out with all the rest of us, but they're supporting it. It's like, it's a joke, but they're the joke and they don't get it. It's very funny.
Right. I was going to say they are, they're always very polite and they're always very politically correct. And, they talk about, we know they are divisive. They are full of hate. Mm-hmm. And what do we have here other than the incitement of hate from Justin Trudeau to basically, do we tolerate these people? And a very specific identifiable group, by the way, these are, I say identifiable group, I say like incite this and incite that. Cause like, this is basically, it might not be in our criminal code, but it's in like, in our human rights stuff, when it comes to like inciting hatred towards a specific group. It's like, Justin Trudeau is guilty of this stuff that he always preaches about. And the thing is, he gets away with it, and his base and his followers and fans eat it up because it's polite. Okay? You can get away with murder as long as you're polite and working hard for you. And what are we going to do about these backwards, racist, misogynist people?
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's been prepped. Like the ground has been prepped for a long time. With
sure.
The us versus them, these backward thinking people, like the white trash.
And in many ways, I would say the fundamental core to Trudeau's platform, Jagmeet's platform, even Biden's platform is conservatives are horrible people. Like that is that's literally the core of their whole political I had distraction there. It's okay. Like that their whole political like platform, if you can even call it that. And which is fascinating, because if you talk to the average conservative, they have so many ideas about policies. And then if you talk to the average like normie, like centrist leftist, it's always, well, I don't want to, conservatives are bad, don't you know? Mm-hmm. Like it's all based upon a caricature of conservatives, or a caricature of like right-wing people, and like, well, I don't want to be a bad guy.
Yeah.
And it's and back to this original statement, it's very fairy tale. It's very much like, yes, and they're all misogynist and racist. The end. It's very basic.
Yeah, and they build up this very basic, this very simplistic kind of view. Like you say, it's fairy tale. And the reason the purpose of fairy tales is to help children understand, like, this is the bad guy, this is the good guy, like to tell a story, right?
Yeah. It's for children, by the way.
It's very basic. Yeah, but that's the level of language that they're trying to insert into this conversation, and they're trying to paint a specific group as the bad guy, and like, it's working a treat. Unfortunately, I wish it wasn't, but it is.
It is, and that's kind of a segue into not just any old lockdown, not just an Ontario lockdown, but I wanted to comment on how the media kind of frames it. It's Doug's lockdown, right? It's Doug who's doing this.
Yeah.
As if
Doug Ford,
as if the prime minister of our country and his like aggressive vaccination campaign during the election has nothing to do with all of the negative consequences of lockdowns happening across the country, right? Like, I'm Justin Trudeau at the federal level. I have nothing to do with this. Oh, this horrible conservative premier, right? As if Doug Ford's really a conservative at this point, right? Anyway,
well, right. I mean, the whole thing is, the other thing to think about here, though, is Boris Johnson, after my show today, came out and reversed, and he's saying we're going ahead with Plan B. We have to move forward with Plan B. So I have to read that article to make sure that they're locking down. But it looks like they're pivoting to more restrictions, right? And Nova Scotia they're putting off an announcement tomorrow of more restrictions, but apparently there's going to be a federal announcement tomorrow about something. So there's more something happening.
Mm.
And so it looks like they're trying to pin this on Doug Ford, and they're saying that Doug Ford is the bad guy. And parents are upset. I think that parents are upset, but the backlash is less than I thought, honestly. I thought there would be a lot more backlash, but that might take time, I guess. I don't know, to build. But Doug Ford would, if he didn't close schools, they'd paint him as the bad guy anyway, right? And no matter what he did, he was going to get painted as the bad guy. And so at that point, you might as well make your constituents happy, right? Like, but I mean, they're polling, and you were telling me that people love this, right? I think it was you who was telling me that. Were you telling me that?
I don't think I was saying that. I haven't dug deep into this topic, but I actually just saw this headline pop up here we're at CBC News. Ontario to stop logging virus 19 school cases, memo says. NDP calls it, quote, terrifying for parents. So that's
good news for parents.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of speaks to what you just said, right? Which is this sort of the more lockdowns, the better. We need to be healthy and safe, like unless, I want my child in a bubble. I want a bubble boy and a bubble girl. I don't want like them to grow
the
up.
Absolute wrong way to raise a child. Like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
If
you're amongst parents, like, you all talk about the horrible helicopter parent, where it's like, do we say something to them? Like, they're really being a helicopter parent to their child, and I think they're going to mess up their kid, but you can't just say that to them. But now we have helicopter parents like being exalted as these amazing role models of, hey, do you want to hold your kid's hand through the rest of their life and try to protect anything bad from happening to them? Scarring them for life, by the way.
Yeah. Let's do that. State sanctioned Munchausen's by proxy, and Munchausen's by proxy is a mental health disorder where a mother or father makes their child sick or fosters an illness to collect the attention that the doctors and nurses and other associated people give them because of their sick child, right? And that's like the state is using Munchausen's to put in more restrictions. It's something else to watch. It's very interesting, and watching the mental health impact across the board is also really interesting. The people who are demanding these restrictions and the people who are comforted by these restrictions. What in the world? Learn some history.
This is very interesting. I just looked it up here. Munchausen syndrome by proxy is a mental health problem in which a caregiver makes up or causes an illness or injury in a person under his or her care, such as a child, an elderly adult, or a person who has a disability. Because vulnerable people are the victims, Munchausen syndrome by proxy is a form of child abuse or elder abuse. Very cool. Very cool.
Societal abuse.
But of course, well, are they sick or not? Did they get the PCR test? We don't care about any of that. No, that's not real. We need to worry about the virus. The virus is the most important thing.
Yeah, that's the crux of it too. Like, how many of those daily cases? I was talking about this today. Like, over the weekend, we had 16,000, 15,000, 18,000, 13,000 cases a day. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, how many of them have any symptoms at all? Or are they just positive tests? And like, if it's just positive tests, this is absolutely a travesty of reporting, using this to justify locking down the province. This is just absolutely wild.
Isn't it interesting how, pre-lockdown, whatever, we had a society that was relatively sensitive and very trying to be, presumably, proactive about mental health. Like, mental health was a big part of the conversation, to the point where it was almost unhealthy, where it's like, yeah, embrace your depression. Here, we got pills for that, almost in a way. And
the bell let's talk.
Yeah. Hey, are you depressed? Text. Use your cell phone more. Yeah.
Why don't you have some wine tonight?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's similar to this. Oh, the mental health of kids is so horrible right now. Yeah. Online learning for life. That's gonna help.
Really. Like, that's right, kids. There's no hope. We've done everything we know how to do, and we're no closer to being open for good. So sorry about that, and more lockdowns. Ha ha.
Yeah. And I guess it's more of kind of like the double speak, right? Where it's like, hey, we really care about mental health, by the way.
Well,
in the conversation of the health crisis, we're
But
that's it. We care about your mental health, period.
yeah,
And now we're not going to talk about anything else having to do with mental health.
Well, the thing is, they want to foster it though. That's the thing. And like talking about your mental health to death doesn't really help you. You need to like, and I mean, like maybe in some cases it will. And if it will, then go to therapy. Don't do it on like Bell Let's Talk Day. But like, so like if you need therapy, then like seek it out maybe, right? But fundamentally, giving yourself a goal and moving towards that goal is creates good feelings in you and makes you get up early and makes you preoccupied with the problem of doing it more. You know what I mean? How do I move quicker to this goal that I'm seeing progress on? And when you're a brand new person, like when you're brand new at something, a lot of people don't try things because they're brand new at it, but you make the most progress, right? Like I'm teaching my daughter how to play guitar, and
let's go.
What do you mean? Let's go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's go is something kids say, like, let's go. Like, yeah. Let's go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. But, and like at first she was like hesitant to do the strumming patterns and stuff because she found it hard, but like she's been practicing for 2 or 3 days and she's done a great job. Right. And I mean, like I try and introduce it to her yearly, like, and it's hard to teach a really, really young kid guitar because like you have to be strong enough to push the strings down. Right.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen till later. So I've just like, she's had it in her hands and stuff and played with it, but now she's getting to the point where she can form chords and stuff.
Nice.
And so when you're really new, you make really big strides and getting better is really like obvious, but people feel like that's not good enough because you're not as good as like your teacher, or you're not as good as that guy on YouTube or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And like, so they give them, they measure themselves in a way that's not very productive because you are not that person on YouTube and you're not the teacher.
I think adults do that too.
Yeah, they do. Oh yeah. Well, you limit yourself a lot by comparing what you're doing to other people's like thing they
highlight reel. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like, and I mean, like I play guitar and like, I don't have a YouTube, like I don't have me playing guitar on YouTube that I've put up.
Yeah. Why is that? A lot of the listeners and viewers are wondering why the hell isn't more your guitar content online?
Oh yeah. Really? No, well, just because people don't pay me to, well, I mean, people don't pay me to sing. I mean, they do pay me to sing. Like that's not true. I have been paid to sing. My cousin's like plays big venues. Yeah. Pretty big venues in England and stuff.
Nice.
So like, but the only reason is just because I don't think it's that I'm not the story. I do covers. Like there's 100 versions of the songs that I do.
No, but that is a good point. I actually brought something else up here to really kind of get into the dystopian direction of where we're going.
Yep.
This is, I believe her name is Merritt Stiles. She is the, I actually don't know who she is, but she's quoting NDP childcare critic in this tweet here. She says, the Ford government is canceling required reporting of cases in schools and daycare, and they snuck this through in a memo issued on New Year's Eve. Accountability, transparency, not in Doug Ford, Ontario. And then she has a link to an Ontario NDP that has a quote here that says, it's not okay to leave anyone at heightened risk of getting the virus. And when it comes to unjabbed little ones under 5, it's atrocious. Are we really at the point where we're disgusted when we're not like tracking every potential like virus outbreak in children? It just seems
it's not about the virus.
Well, I know it's not, but for the normies the NDP supporters who are seeing this and they're like, yeah, like we want to be tracking all our children and like, you know, tracking every sort of potential pathogen that might be crossing their paths. How are you not measuring all of this? Like, it's just like, how did we get here? This is in such a small amount of time where what bothers me about it is, you know, what we've talked many times about is we're not really talking honestly about the virus. We're not really talking honestly about the preventative measures, if they work. We're not even talking about the tests and if they work that well. Yeah. Yet we have this ideal sort of, to use a kind of like brash sort of example, like we have this sort of idealistic, well-to-do soccer mom who's like, well, I want to know and make sure my kid is super safe and there's no risks at all. And I want to track every pathogen that comes in and out of your school.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it's not realistic, right? Yeah.
Not at all.
It's totally crazy. Yeah. And but the government is totally on board with this. The government is saying, insisting even that that's how it has to be before society opens. And it's
Right.
like, well,
And in
you're
many,
ignoring like cancer deaths. You're ignoring heart
Sure.
disease deaths. You're ignoring alcohol poisoning or not alcohol poisoning, but like alcohol disease and all of that.
and I hate to throw terms around like fascism and like dictator and stuff like this, but if you really consider the perspective and the attitude of a soccer mom like this, who was like, I want to know about every pathogen and make sure it's all tracked. It's like, this is a hunger and thirst for control and just like, yeah, like not just control, but a very intense and disturbing amount of control and a demand for it as well. So it's like, not only do we have the people leading the country and making decisions in public health who are overreaching, but we actually have the citizens themselves participating and being encouraged to being little tyrants themselves. Right.
Yep.
Crazy.
Their whole job is to make it uncomfortable for people to speak out the way we're speaking out about how crazy all this is, because it is crazy. It makes zero sense.
Well,
their data makes zero sense to respond this way.
And not only that, it's like, we're being told we're crazy for asking very good questions that, quite frankly, should be answered and should have been answered a long time ago.
Yeah.
And
they have a responsibility to justify this.
they're crazy for things not being absolutely perfect and like no one ever getting sick or ever dying again. Like, it's like this totally unrealistic expectation that they're demanding. That is,
and the government,
it really goes to show like how, I gotta say, I don't even like, I hate using the word privilege, but like, like these sheltered, privileged lives where it's like, God forbid you don't know about every, everyone's like safe all the time or something. It's like, where did you grow up where you think this is actually realistic?
Yeah.
Crazy.
We got to jump to the last thing because I got to go get snack ready.
Absolutely. So the last story here, a CBC journalist speaks out about time. I haven't read this whole Substack, but I'll just jump into it with this quick quote. This is from Jamil Javani, who has a show on AM 1010 there. But Tara Henley, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, has resigned from the CBC. She explains why in her new Substack. This paragraph stands out as especially troubling news about Canada's public broadcaster because it further reveals CBC's truly superficial approach to, quote, diversity. And then this is her quote. To work at the CBC now is to accept the idea that race is the most significant thing about a person and that some races are more relevant to the public conversation than others. It is, in my newsroom, to fill out racial profile forms for every guest you book. To actively book for more people of some races and less of others. Yep. This isn't racism for those watching. That's progress, according to the CBC. To actively book more people of some races and less of others. Or maybe in their mind it's reparations or something like this.
Well, and they wonder why the viewership is down. Like, people don't tune in to look at people who don't represent them or don't look like them, right? And when you take the majority population and you vilify them, and then you prioritize Black Lives Matter in front of every hockey game and NBA game and basketball game, whatever, like you're fundamentally ruining, and they know what they're doing. They're fundamentally ruining these cultural things that have been built in the West, and the reason for that is
I would actually push back a bit on that. I think the majority of people who participate in it actually think it's a good thing. I think the majority of people who are pushing it and participating in it, they're drinking the Kool-Aid and they're agreeing.
Yeah,
they're saying
you never Darth Vader in the story.
Yeah, of course.
Like,
but in terms of like people who know it's kind of this nefarious undermining of like Canadian identity and Canadian culture, and even like just
it is though.
Even this kind of cheap commodification of BIPOC people. I hate using that term. It's there's really not much good to it whatsoever, the way they even kind of promote the diversity, because it's so forced. It's it's done in such a way that I don't know. It's filled with like pity, pitying, receiving pity, giving pity. And it's like, pity is not a good thing, guys. You shouldn't like to get pitied. You shouldn't enjoy pitying someone.
Well, but
it's a very condescending thing. It's like, there's a big difference between pitying someone and genuinely wanting the best for them. And I think a lot of this kind of woke progressive, like anti-racism and oh my God, oh, where are you from? Oh my God, oh, it's gross. It's disgusting. It's like you don't really respect this person. Like you're kind of treating them like this. It's so counterintuitive in my opinion.
Yeah, so I don't watch commercials generally, and I don't watch a lot of like the new TV shows and things. And like, but I've noticed that a lot of main characters in a lot of new TV shows, and other people have noticed on like Twitter and things, BBC's running all the wankers are white on this one show, some guy was saying, and the good characters, the people that like are putting, espousing high moral values and things like that are people of color. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, like if that's what the character would be. But if you're writing it that way specifically on purpose, and that guy said that they were, and the commercials, there's no mixed, or there's a lot of mixed race and not a lot of families that look like my family, right? Which is interesting because like families look, well, they can look very different, but it's very interesting when you've got a North American audience. And my mom said, we've got a lot of Indian people on the commercials. And I said, like First Nations? And she said, not those Indians. And I said, okay. Right. And it's like, so we're in Canada, right? And so like, why is it okay to remove like the Quebec French or the Ontario, white English speaking people? Why are those people disposable or somehow worse than the people who are representing Black Lives Matter? Because like Black Lives Matter isn't historically something that was celebrated in Guelph, right? Not until the pandemic did we have a Black Lives Matter parade, but we can't have the Santa Claus parade because of the pandemic.
Yeah. And I mean, we're touching on a huge topic here, so we'll have to wrap it up real shortly. But I am at the point where I've kind of felt this way for a little while now, but I'm really not afraid to talk about it anymore. And that is that, there is, without a doubt, undeniably, there is some anti-white sort of agenda going on here where it's like, it's only emphasizing the bad things that have happened in history, and like not only that, but it's really saying, you have no culture, you have no history, and it's all bad, and it's so absurd because if you actually do the math of white majority countries, whatever, like if you start to do the math in history, it's like, well, you're really discrediting a lot of things that have happened.
You're ignoring a lot of things.
You're ignoring a lot of things. And it's become, and the scary part is it's become so commonplace and seductive to a lot of people. And I think that has to do with how,
well, if you don't kowtow to this, if you don't bow down to this and agree with this, or if you even like,
if you don't hate yourself, if you don't hate yourself as a white man,
nailed it. Then you can't progress as a teacher. You won't be an administrator. You won't be a superintendent. You can't progress as a police officer. You can't progress as like all of these things have this predetermined, it's a test, and it'll weed out anybody who's saying the things that you and I are saying, to be quite frank with you.
Yeah. And it's too bad.
And that's not good.
Yeah. It's too bad because like, the conversation of racism and people having implicit biases, like, there's something there. And like when it comes to like anti-racism and blah, 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 I would say like maybe 5 to 10% of the conversation, maybe there's something like valuable in there. But now it's become about this other 90% that is really just like, this just feels like a lot of like anti-white nonsense.
Yeah.
And
they just want to
turning into something, just very ugly, ugly and gross.
Figuratively.
Yeah. Of course. All right. That's been fun. Any other
uplifting?
Very uplifting. Talking about the
Canadian news is just by definition uplifting these days. Everybody's super happy about it, right?
Yeah,
Everybody's
absolutely. Yeah. Hey, and to everyone in Ontario, hey, good thing. This is a really annoying thing to say, but hey, I'm really glad you got your booster shot. It's really paying off.
Chelsea.
You got to go to your restaurants now. No, now they're closed.
Nowhere. Well, that's a whole other topic, right? Like just unbelievable. So, well, at least hopefully that will wake people up. At least hopefully
It's got
booster
something's got to
shots.
happen. Yeah,
Booster shots.
something's got to happen here.
I
where-
thought something had to happen last year. I was like, this
No,
can't
but
stand.
you know, more and more people are going to crack, but it very much is, you know, it's time to like crap or get off the pot, right? It's time to join the winning side, or it's time to like really double down and like, you know, really, you better dig that hole deep, because, you know, the cognitive dissonance, like you better get better at that if you're going to keep going along with this. Oh my.
Yeah, for sure.
But guys, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Speaking Moistly, of course, and share it with a friend if you think they might enjoy it.
Indeed.
Speakingmoistly.co is our back catalog. I'm on Twitter at GDub. I'm also at TikTok at the same thing down here. Mark Moralivas' Twitter is right there. And Mark, take us out here.
No, you nailed it, man. You nailed it. Check out all the things that Greg said, and we'll do better next week. Check us out.
We did
Thanks for
great this
subscribing.
week. What are you talking about?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, we did great this week.
It's always getting better.
Always.
Maybe you'll try. Maybe next week you'll be the main host.
Maybe. All right. Till next time, guys. We'll have our Prime Minister play us out.
Speaking moistly, keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly.